We would like to dedicate this presentation to three amazing mentors who we lost this year and who meant a lot in my life. Dr. Michael Preston, Professor of Political Science at the University of Southern California. Dr. Maria Elena Martinez Lopez, Associate Professor of History at the University of Southern California. And Dr. Camille Garin Gonzalez, Professor of History and Chicano Latino Studies at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. My name is George Sanchez. I was the first in my family to go to college. My father only completed 6th grade before leaving school to support his family in Guadalajara, Jalisco. My mother did not go to high school before immigrating to the United States from Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua. I now am a professor of history, American studies, and ethnicity at the University of Southern California.
My name is Maria Jose Plasencia. I grew up in a single mother household on the border of Chula Vista and Tijuana, going back and forth regularly. I am the first generation college student, and when I started at USC, I was undecided and clueless about what to do with my life. But today, I am a junior majoring in American Studies and Ethnicity and an aspiring graduate student, hopefully one day in a PhD program.
Good morning. My name is Jasmine Torres. I'm the oldest of 6 siblings. When I was born, my mother was 15 years old, and I've never met my father. And I was a first-generation college student at USC, and I graduated in the spring of 2014.
Good morning. My name is Felicitas Reyes. My family was racked with drug addiction when I was growing up, and therefore at age 14, I decided to go to school in Massachusetts through the A Better Chance program. I am now a sophomore majoring in American Studies and Ethnicity and Communications. I am a first-generation low-income college student.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Debbie Rumbo. I am a self-proclaimed hippie, redefined in this age. Just as political, a bit more eccentric. I came from a single-parent home where my mother barely completed elementary school before she had to leave it all to work. College was sort of a glorious accident for me. And I'm biracial by nature and nurture. I'm a first-generation dual-degree college grad, still a hippie, just more educated.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Adrian Trinidad. I grew up in South Los Angeles, where I've seen my peers die, go to prison, and fall into a life of gangs. Both of my parents did not go beyond 3rd grade in Zacatecas and Jalisco, Mexico, and I've cared for my schizophrenic father since I was 10 years old. I am now a graduating senior at the University of Southern California.
Good morning. My name is Eunice Velarde, and I was born in Mexico and immigrated to the United States at the age of 3. I was the second in my family to graduate from high school and the first to attend college. I graduated from the University of Southern California in 2010 and now work for USC. I'm a mother of 2, Isaac age 8 and Paulina age 12, and my love for my family is and has always been my greatest motivation.
As Vice Dean for Diversity and Strategic Initiatives at USC Dornsife College, the mission of our office is to create an environment in which students from all backgrounds and conditions can take full advantage of everything USC has to offer to meet their educational and personal goals in life. To do this, we work to develop programs that meet the needs of first-generation college students, underrepresented racial minority students, and those that are underserved by the rest of USC. The Dornsife Office for Diversity incorporates into our programs the insights of high-impact practices for student success, but applies them directly to initiatives that target the underrepresented and the underserved. USC, often referred to as the University of Spoiled Children by its detractors, has 17% students who are first-generation college students, 21% students who are Black, Latino, or Native American, and 14% students who transfer into USC from four-year institutions and community colleges. With 18,000 undergraduates, this amounts to over 4,000 students that fit at least one of these categories. But they go to a school with a lot of resources where most students and faculty are middle class or rich, white or Asian, from US suburbs or cities in Asia. To compete successfully in this environment, it's important to me that we understand and serve the needs of individual students with all the complexities and differences they bring to the campus. It requires that we know our students as individual people who are striving for their education while balancing commitments to family, school, and their communities. And it's important to me that as educators, we mentor them from the heart and from the mind, pushing them to creatively find their own paths and use their enormous potential to discover what contribution they want to make to this world we inhabit together. At research universities like USC, I think it's vital to introduce all students to academic research so they understand the culture of an intellectual environment dedicated to discovery. All 6 of the scholars you will hear from this morning engaged in research of their choosing in their respective fields of study during their undergraduate years. Doing research allows students to understand how knowledge is created and empowers them to take control of their own education, asking and answering questions of their own making.
It took me 9 years to transfer from community college to USC, and 12 years total to complete my BA. I started with the goal of obtaining my degree in business administration and then real estate, but for all the wrong reasons. Eventually, motivated by my personal experience, I decided to pursue a career in immigration law. In the end, none of that worked out. I obtained my degree in American Studies and Ethnicity, Chicano-Latino Studies, and now work for the USC Keck School of Medicine. Thanks to the mentorship and unique opportunities I received as a student at USC, my life changed in a profound way. This is my story, and I thank you for the opportunity to share it. I immigrated to the United States at the age of 3 and was undocumented until the age of 18. I grew up in a single-parent household and moved out of my home at the age of 16 to escape domestic violence. I attended a very strict fundamentalist religious school from 5th to 12th grade that completely discouraged critical thinking and secular higher education. By my senior year in high school, I was working and worrying about rent, bills, and how I was going to eat every day. Needless to say, I felt very insecure about my future. However, in spite of all of this, I was determined to go to college. I took 1 to 3 classes a semester depending on my work schedule, but the stress of life, family, and finances often made it difficult to focus. Still, no matter how hard things got or how bad I failed, giving up was never an option. I became a mother at the age of 22, and although I worried about how this would affect my education, in motherhood, I found an intense strength and determination to push forward. While attending community college, I did not consider a top-tier university within my reach. Thankfully, I was encouraged to apply and was accepted to USC for the spring semester of 2008. However, I quickly realized that I was not prepared for what was ahead. No matter how hard I tried, I could not keep up with everyone else's pace. I felt very lonely and different. Most importantly, I did not know how to communicate this to anyone. As a result, my education suffered, and it placed a lot of stress on my personal relationships and my family. I felt that all of the odds were stacked against me and came very close to giving up. I do not know exactly how I got through it, but I sincerely believe I would have failed without Dr. Sanchez's mentorship. Unconventional mentorship, flexible programs, and understanding faculty helped me discover my potential in spite of my circumstances. With the help of my mentor, who took the time to get to know me, I worked on not comparing myself to everyone around me and began asking for and accepting help. I also learned to accept a label that had been given to me, but one that I initially thought had a negative connotation. I was considered a non-traditional student. And as such, I needed a non-traditional faculty to help me take a non-traditional approach to my education. Dr. Sanchez recommended the Summer Undergraduate Research Fund, or SURF, through Dornsife College and led me in that direction. Unlike other programs with strict and inflexible time commitments and requirements, SURF granted me a stipend to support summer work on a faculty-based research project. Dr. Sanchez mentored me throughout the project, consistently showing consideration of my circumstances, while still challenging me to reach new academic heights. Thanks to this experience, I was introduced to the world of research and fell in love with every part of it. Over the course of the summer, I became familiar with the evolution of manuscripts and the process of publication. I engaged in archival research and learned how to access a variety of resources while focusing my research efforts. I fully immersed myself in the process of data collection and learned how to filter, analyze, and arrange data so that it tells a story. Furthermore, SURF and the Dornsife Office of Diversity funded my travel and conference costs, which allowed me to network and build relationships with other students and faculty in my field. Finally, for the first time in my education, I felt excited about my future. Prior to participating in this program, financial constraints, inflexible program, and lack of support prevented me from taking advantage of similar opportunities. I also lacked the confidence to do anything outside of going to class, studying, and working. This experience gave me the confidence and significantly impacted the course of my life. I used to be afraid to ask questions, and now I am fully engaged in the business of seeking answers. After graduating, I accepted a research position in the medical field in spite of not having any prior medical training. I collect quantitative and qualitative data, I create databases, and help establish protocols that ensure data integrity. Up to date, my work has been used in several journal publications and has helped save lives. Although I hope to obtain my graduate degree in history one day, I am grateful for where I am today.
So Eunice has a strength about her that is evident from the first time one meets her. She has taken on much in her life and is dedicated to her family and to her community. She has had bumps along the way, but always seemed to get up, dust herself off, and persevere again because of her commitment to education. Once introduced to the world of research, she thrived as a student, and I think her ability to shape questions and seek answers continues to serve her well in her current employment. Our programs must learn to serve students from all backgrounds, coming to our campuses with a myriad of experiences and life conditions. While Eunice's family commitments were unusual for the typical USC undergraduate, they are also what drove her to succeed and to graduate. Her son Isaac is a delightful human being, and her daughter Paulina is one of the brightest children I have met in a very long time. Eunice is going to have to be ready for her to go to USC or maybe some Ivy League school for her education. Passing along our successes to a new generation is something that mentorship is all about. And no one knows that more than college undergraduates with children of their own. Eunice and Adrian, who speaks next, both came to USC as transfer students from community colleges in Southern California. Our university president, C.L. Max Nikias, has made it a point to encourage other private universities to take more community college transfer students and welcome and serve them better in four-year institutions. One program at USC that does this well is the Norman Topping Student Aid Fund, founded at USC in 1972 by two African-American undergraduates that convinced the rest of the student body to fund a student aid program intended to make USC less elite. It's funded through a fee every semester. My office partners directly with that program, breaking down the barriers between academic and student affairs, something that's vital for meeting the needs of first-generation college students. All the students you're hearing from today, are Topping Scholars, identified because they overcame major obstacles to get to college.
I should not be, I'm a little tall. I should not be standing in front of you. I, like some of my peers, are anomalies, made possible by the few that believed in us and the few that taught and led us. My story begins in South Los Angeles, next to the Pueblo del Rio housing projects, where school was not a priority, as was getting home safe from school or having food on the table. When I was in elementary school, my father was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and my mom began working 12 to 15 hours a day in a garment factory to support my family. I grew up fast and with a lot of responsibility, but it was with the unconditional love of a dedicated mother and 2 older brothers. It has been a long yet accompanied journey, and my success has been possible through the mentors I've come across with at different stages. It all started in 3rd grade when I first visited USC. I was much smaller and I didn't have a clue about college. But something stuck with me that day. A girl kneeled to the ground and told me, "You can come here," and gave me a bookmark from the USC Norman Topping Scholarship. That crumbled bookmark, which I still have today, was my inspiration to one day go back to that majestic place I had visited as a child. Out of high school, I worked in the same garment factory that my mother had worked in, and I attended Los Angeles Trade Tech College for 3 years. During that time, I met an English professor who truly inspired me. He made English relevant to me and brought college to the classroom through guest speakers and by sharing his own experience as a first-generation college student. This inspired me to work hard, and I did. Between caring for my dad, working long hours to help my mom, doing internships in community service, I wanted USC to see who I was and who I could become. Not some handout, but someone truly dedicated to helping my community. And since I was stubborn, it was the only university I applied to. Not good advice. Luckily, USC saw something in me, just as the mentors I've come across with at my university. The scholarship from that crumbled bookmark was now funding the one that had inspired me since I was in 3rd grade, was now funding my tuition at USC and providing me with valuable resources. One of them was George Sanchez. Almost 2 years ago, when I was at a Norman Topping scholarship retreat, Jasmine Torres, who is here, was the first person I met. And I remember her telling me that I needed to talk to him. I saw him, this grandiose character with a great laugh, and I didn't know what to say or what to do. Even though he looked welcoming with joy, I was petrified and I didn't know, quite honestly, what to do. I never would have imagined that I'd be going to Japan with him the following summer, conducting research and opening the doors to many opportunities. Through the Summer Undergraduate Research Fund, I learned from Professor Sanchez how to develop research topics and questions. I learned about various research methods. Through the Japan program, I learned about the importance of developing relationships with professors. One such relationship was with my faculty advisor for the Japan program, who recommended me to the honors program in sociology, even though the application deadline had long passed. I am now finishing my senior thesis on Latinos and transfer rates in California community colleges. This experience has been amazing. I've gotten in contact with important faculty who are invested in community colleges, a field that I want to get into. And through the experience in this honors program, I also became a research assistant for a study on racial identity in South LA parks and community gardens through the Center for the Study of Immigrant Integration at USC. I'm also a researcher at the Center for Urban Education at the USC Rusnier School of Education. And I'm looking at transfer practices at LA Trade Tech, the community college that I attended. Through Professor Sanchez's recommendation, I applied and was accepted to the McNair Scholars Program, where I will be able to further develop my senior thesis through the summer and receive support for the GRE exam and with graduate school applications. I'll be the first in my extended family to pursue an advanced degree. The first time I ever got on a plane was going to Japan. The first time I ever got on a plane was going to Japan. And even though it was a terrifying 11-hour experience, It helped me understand the importance of traveling. Understanding the value of culture and diversity is very important to me. This past week for spring break, I was in the island of Oahu, Hawaii, learning about issues of sovereignty and tourism in the state. It was an absolutely incredible experience, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without the guidance of my mentors. I am forever grateful for the experiences I've had at my university. It was almost a domino effect. One thing led to another. And the mentorship from George Sanchez and others has been vital in helping me navigate various pathways in college. Most importantly, this mentorship has made me take advantage of the resources available at my university and has thus added tremendous value to my undergraduate education. It gave me the courage to take ownership of my education and not set limitations because of my background. I now feel that anything is possible, regardless of where you come from or what your interests are. You just need the right support and mentor to get there. Thank you.
The Japan Summer Immersion Program was created as a partnership between the Norman Topping Program and the Dornsife Office for Diversity to enable first-generation college students who had never traveled outside the United States to envision themselves as global leaders of the future. It was created once we understood that the very low percentage of first-generation college students and underrepresented minority students ever experience study abroad programs, even as our institutions purport to be creating global citizens that can take on world problems. Adrian and the rest of the students you will hear from this morning all benefited from this Japan Immersion Program, a three-week intensive class that introduces students to the benefit of stepping outside of their comfort zone. Now, one aspect of that course that is vital is the fact that I spend 3 weeks traveling with students. First in Los Angeles, then in Tokyo, Hiroshima, and Kyoto on airplanes, bullet trains, and doing a great deal of walking. It's during this trip that I got to spend significant time with Adrian, learning his story and understanding what he wanted to accomplish at USC. It's important in any successful academic mentorship program that we build substantial, structured, and unstructured time for faculty members to really talk with students, outside of classroom and office hours, so that they can get to know each other. To truly listen to young people requires time and the ability to connect their aspirations to the resources available at our institutions. Adrian wants to change the world, specifically the world that shapes opportunities of those students trying to succeed in our community colleges. Through research, connection, and passion, he wants to build bridges of success for others like him and the others you are meeting this morning. That passion, that energy, is what fills the hope of us as educators and teachers of the next generation. It is what drives us to continue to do what we do.
Adjust it a little. This has been one of the most important years in my life. I'm going through a phase I know to be a limbo, uncertain of the steps to take and the means to reach my goals. They're ones that mold, shift, and change with me in my many transitions. The key has always been to remain true to myself and my passions. This world tends to shred those away, replacing dreams with work projects and turning travel plans into work expenses. Corporate America is never pretty, but she pays the bills. I've navigated this space for a year now, trekking through the storms and enjoying the sunshine of agency, though opaque because this is still not where I want to be. I have found a lighthouse at the end of this mental oblivion, allowed myself to be guided, losing and then finding this light time and time again. Never would I have understood the role of this lighthouse in my life more than I do today. A constant reminder of how far I've come, a steadfast grip to what lies ahead and beyond these corporate walls. He will not let go, and I continue tied to his belief in me and my ability to move towards the light. This poem is for him. I ventured off into the sea, unsure that I could swim. So many times the waves had come to squander the fire within. You see, my life had been this way since I was just a kin. Fear had a way of limiting my ability to dream. When you came along, lost in translation, I was foreign in more ways than one. I remember our conversation over boiling noodles, fluid like our experiences in Japan. I remember not trusting, too real for the generic visit in, ask, rinse, repeat I was used to when forging connections with faculty. I told you superficial was not for me. I showed you neither was conformity. You took me in, misshapen ball of clay. You were a revolutionary with vision. I was but a tyro with misunderstood potential. Too convinced that no one would ever want me. I figured that since my father didn't, what could compel a stranger? It was better this way. No attachment meant no vulnerability. No vulnerability meant strength. I had no room for weakness because my dreams have never been solely owned. Perhaps this is how this all ensued, because when I showed you my world, you could see it too. Too complex, way naive for the realistic mind, yet you taught me to fly but never leave behind all of those whom I owe all that I have become. Our trip in November kept this teaching alive. When we walked on your routes and you pushed me towards mine, you said, one day, Deb, this will all too be yours. And amongst the euphoria, I had hope and remorse. You understood this, as few others can. You even let me throw it all up in the back of an all-black sedan. New Haven to JFK. Racing thoughts, random bouts filled with questions and doubts that have come passing like clouds that block the sun when gloom looms. And even on those days, I can count on your light that consumes, devouring the darkness and clearing the fog, moving me towards me again, taking me from the America of corporates, questioning my ambitions, directing them with your intellect, inspiring me, curating my invisible talents, chiseling away at the clay where I lay bliss in my ignorance, eyes closed to the possibility of you and the symbiotic nature of our unique union. Impossible to be defined by one-dimensional titles. Everything worth discussing is, I've learned. What to say about you to reach many minds that can capture their souls, even hesitant as was mine. More than a molder, a teacher, a friend, you've become a lighthouse. And since looking ahead is a thing that you do, you have shown me a duty to remain just as you, humbled to pass on the knowledge unto those who seek what I sought, a lighthouse that could shut out the dark. Because if I've learned anything from all of our adventures, you and me, it's that all roads lead back home.
Self-doubt, fear of the future, all emotions that any first-generation college student has had in their own abilities to reach their goals. To be the first in your family to attend college, you are certainly a pioneer, but often you feel alone and confused a lot of the time, often feeling the pull back to roots of survival that are more comfortable and well-worn. I have had these fears and doubts all my life, and Debbie, our self-proclaimed hippie, articulates those feelings for all of us to acknowledge and to connect with. From our time in Japan to my sponsorship of her research project, to our trip to explore East Coast law schools, to our continued meals to talk about work, family, and dreams of the future, Debbie has challenged me as a mentor to be as truthful and open as possible, always willing to encourage her exploration, but also to remind her of the goals she has set for herself. To listen and to reflect back to her what she has shared. To do this, however, mentorship must not be confined to any one program, class, or semester. It must continue beyond graduation as she continues to explore who she wants to become. The 2013 Purdue Gallup poll of 38,000 college graduates identified 2 issues that mark successful undergraduate careers. 1, a real relationship with a mentor. And 2, a project of one's own that stretches beyond one semester. And only 5% of college graduates believe that they had both. Debbie, like most of us, is still a work in progress, but a delightful and a powerful person that she is today, and she will be in the future. Like all of our scholars, she is unique in the world, but it is that very uniqueness that will allow her to make her mark in the world. Our job as mentors is to establish programs that can allow abilities and confidence to grow, while holding on to and nurturing that unique set of qualities which makes each student special. We must allow growth to occur by identifying students early in their careers and guiding them throughout the undergraduate years, even beyond them, to reach their goals and aspirations.
Going to college was always the most important thing I had, the most important goal I had in my education. In high school, USC was my dream school. And once I got in, I thought everything would go smooth from there. I didn't think much about what I should do in college to prepare me for life after graduation. My first semester at USC was extremely difficult. Other students had parents to rely on and knew exactly what they wanted to do. Or so it seemed to me. I didn't feel like I had any direction or specific academic niche for that matter. In the most simple words, I was lost. However, after being accepted into the Japan Summer Immersion Program, I began regularly meeting with Dr. Sanchez. It really made all the difference. Having someone look out for me really changed my experience at USC. I had someone who knew the workings of the university and was willing to take the time to help me navigate the inner workings of college. The Summer Immersion Program in Japan was my first opportunity to do research. Before this, I didn't even know what that meant. My project dealt with immigration and how Japanese society viewed immigrants, particularly low-wage workers. It was such a great experience to do a project on a topic that I am passionate about. And it was the first time I was doing something for school where I was given complete freedom to have my project go in any direction that I wanted. Of course, it was a very daunting task for someone who had never done research before. But with Dr. Sanchez's guidance, I was able to take my project step by step and produce something that I was proud of in the end. This year, I've had the pleasure of working with Dr. Sanchez's Office for Diversity and Strategic Initiatives. I never thought I would be in a job position like this while in college. I would have been happy just finding a work-study job where I would have been doing busy work. I did not expect to be working with a team of people from all different academic levels: professor, associate dean, PhD students, and other undergraduates who each have something different to bring to the table. Given the many tasks we work on, our office would not be able to succeed without every individual in our group making a contribution, even mine. For me, that is still hard to imagine because I struggle, as I'm sure many undergraduates do, with feelings of inadequacy and being competent enough to provide something new to the table. The position I have with the Office for Diversity and Strategic Initiatives is a situation where my bosses offer me guidance without holding my hand every step of the way. They value my thoughts and opinions, and I feel like I have learned so much more than I have in some of my classes. Working with Dr. Sanchez's Diversity Office has really helped me become a more independent thinker and doer. This has changed my experience at USC because social justice and educational equity are extremely important to me. I continue to be behind the scenes making sure other students get the opportunities that come from each of our programs for first-generation college students. Besides working for the office, I've been able to benefit from many of the programs our office provides. Through these programs, I have traveled, explored my own interests, and conducted research. Things I thought would be far from my reach, and yet I've done them all within a year or so. This is why I'm so thankful to have the mentorship and guidance of Dr. Sanchez. I never knew how important it would be to have someone there that had your best interests at heart just because they truly care about your well-being. That is what Dr. Sanchez has done for me. He has helped me in more ways than one. Not only in academic situations where he has been able to work things out with me, the types of classes I would benefit from, but also in personal matters where I can go to him regarding issues I'm dealing with in my family. This has really made me feel that I am not alone and that I am supported here at USC. And this is why he is someone I have come to know as mentor and friend.
Felicia is the youngest scholar participating today, only a sophomore in college, less than 2 years away from being a high school student. However, her life as a student already shows the importance of having a mentor in the first semester of school, someone to talk through some of the most difficult issues a new college student faces, especially when one does not have parents who went to college, or like Felicia, adults to talk with who could help her set new goals about success in college and beyond in life. One of the most important areas of programming that we all must do better in, turning into high-impact practice, is in student employment and work-study jobs, especially when our colleges and universities are paying working-class students part of their financial aid. There is no reason why we shouldn't view each work-study job as an opportunity to learn skills and get critical mentorship while being paid as employees. Every university office who employs an undergraduate must take the time to consider not only what that student can provide in services to the employer, but also how that job can enhance a student's own path of learning and experiences that will add to their success. We control these kinds of jobs, and we have a responsibility to make them work better for all of our undergraduates. Felicia is always focused on educational equity issues, and by working for the Dornsife Office for Diversity, she gets a first-hand view of how new programs are instituted and older programs are sustained and improved. Indeed, her involvement with several programs has led her to have insights on necessary improvements that the rest of us did not initially see. Her background and experiences have led her to create her own research project to investigate Freedom University in Atlanta, a nonprofit educational institution set up by University of Georgia professors for undocumented students in that state when the Georgia State Legislature passed draconian anti-immigrant acts which barred those students from attending public universities. Recently, this project of hers has led Felicia to successfully enter the Mellon Mays Undergraduate Fellows Program, where she will learn advanced research skills to eventually get her to a PhD program.
When I was 9, my great-grandma and I took an overnight Greyhound bus to San Francisco for a weekend. And I remember being really excited because I had never visited anywhere outside of my little neighborhood in South Central. And fast forward to when I was a sophomore at USC, and I hadn't ventured anywhere outside of California still. Then one morning, while I was at the bus stop, I got a phone call from someone telling me that I had been selected for an all-expenses-paid trip to New York City. And sounding like a hoax, I almost hung up. But then he said, oh, a USC scholarship advisor nominated you. And I hung up. I had just been invited to speak on a panel at Columbia University, and I was so excited. This meant that I would get to go to New York City. And I sang New York, New York by Frank Sinatra for weeks. And although I wouldn't know it until after the trip, the most luck came from getting a chance to meet Dr. Sanchez and him accompanying me. And I didn't know Dr. Sanchez. I knew about him. I knew that he went to Harvard and that he was a professor, but not much else. And I was nervous and excited that Dr. Sanchez was going to see me speak on the panel, and the morning of, he assured me that I was going to do great. Afterwards, Dr. Sanchez gave me a personal historical tour of New York City. He took me to Ellis Island, to the top of the Rock. I saw Times Square and Central Park. I ate New York-style pizza and I rode the train, and Dr. Sanchez shared stories about Harvard, like when he was snowed in and how he wanted to be a lawyer, and about how he used to see the planes take off at airports when he was a little kid with his family. And in turn, I told him about my great-grandma, about dreaming of USC, about all of my siblings and my family. And looking back, that trip was a special and pivotal moment. Dr. Sanchez took an interest in me as a person, and after that trip, he invited me to go to Japan to do research. I was really scared. He encouraged me to apply to other research programs as well. He listened to my concerns and he helped offer creative solutions. And I shared with him a lot of my experiences as a youth. And he encouraged me to do research on something that I was especially passionate about and that was at the focal point of my experience, which was the foster care system. After spending my adolescent life in foster care, I met so many youth in group homes and shelters, and they weren't enrolled in school or interested in the idea of college. And I don't blame them. It's tough to think of the future when life is so unstable. My research as an undergrad focused on the support systems of foster youth, and it helped me learn that while not many foster youth go to college, that they can go and they can graduate when they have the right assistance in school. And because I also didn't always feel like I had the right assistance, I was inspired to start the Trojan Guardian Scholars Program. Plus, all public universities had a Guardian Scholars, and it made sense that we should have one too. Guardian Scholars is a support program for former foster youth to help with housing, counseling, financial aid, and other needs because, as you guessed, it's not easy when you don't have family support. And when I shared my idea with Dr. Sanchez, he automatically wanted to make it happen. He reached out to the USC School of Social Work, to the Rosier School of Education, and he spoke to people who wanted to help. And my senior year in college, the program launched and now offers services to former foster youth who are attending USC. Dr. Sanchez helped me accomplish the thing that I am most proud of doing. Helping start TGS meant that I did my part in making USC a more supportive place for former foster youth. And now there's a group of students who all have Dr. Sanchez to learn from and who Dr. Sanchez can learn from too. And I graduated in the first TGS class in 2014 and received my diploma directly from Dr. Sanchez when I walked across the stage. He even celebrated with me right after graduation with other mentors that I have met along this journey. He's been there to offer solutions when I was scared, when I was worried about supporting my sister and me after graduation. He gave me part-time work with TGS so that I would have time to find a full-time job. When I felt weak and not good enough, he's reminded me that I'm strong, smart, and capable. In fact, he was even brave enough to give me a driving lesson. And I still don't know how to drive. But I only say this because there are a lot of things, maybe even things that seem simple to others that I'm still learning how to do, and a lot of things that I'm learning to unlearn. And I've learned that it's okay to be or feel behind. You start wherever you are and you catch up. Spending life in foster care is a very unusual experience. You see a lot of people come and go, and you learn to let go quickly. And it's not always easy to trust people, but I think that after enough time, you learn that some people just want to help you grow and stay in your corner. And I've been very fortunate to have Dr. Sanchez in my life.
experiential learning is a term we've come to associate with learning outside of the classroom. But we usually only associate it with experiences that a student has once enrolled in college. Jasmine had a wealth of experiences before she ever arrived at USC. Experiences, both good and bad, that bred resiliency, that shaped her outlook on life and her inquisitiveness about how to help others in similar situations as her. Rather than view those as deficiencies, I always saw those as assets she brought to USC, as did others. Indeed, it was Christina Yokoyama, the director of the Norman Topping Student Aid Fund, that recommended that Jasmine be the student we picked to take to Opportunity Nation at Columbia University to speak for all USC students. Jasmine, the only student presenter at Opportunity Nation that year, sparkled in front of that audience. And she has sparkled as a speaker in front of donors for USC Dornsife College, and in front of the California State Legislature for USC, fighting to keep them from cutting the Cal Grants for private college students. I've written with her for the latest issue of Diversity and Democracy from the AAC&U, and she's a brilliant spokesperson for what is possible to achieve with support and mentorship. Her vision of a Trojan Guardian Scholars Program was possible because she backed it up with meticulous research, used her networks, and I'm just grateful that I was in a position to make it happen before she graduated. Mentorship like this is a partnership for the good of the mentee, the mentor, and the institution as a whole. USC is a richer place because of Trojan Guardian Scholars, not only for the financial support it provides for this effort, but also for what it says about what individual students can achieve in their lifetimes. We need to find ways to incorporate the visions of our students into our programming, to make their dreams into realities and to support them to shoot high for the difference they can make in society. And I truly believe that I've learned as much about life and the world we can create from Jasmine as she has learned lessons from me.
Of course it's happening inside your head, Harry, but why on earth should that mean that it's not real? This is a quote Dumbledore tells Harry Potter right after Lord Voldemort kills Harry in the Forbidden Forest. For those of you who are familiar with Harry Potter, this quote may ring a bell, and for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, all you have to know is Dumbledore was Harry's mentor. From the little things like what jelly bean flavor to avoid because they taste like earwax, and the big things like what to do as he has just been killed by his lifelong enemy. I share this quote with you not only because it's my favorite quote from all 7 books, but also because it reminds me very much of myself. Way too many things happen inside my head. Dreams like becoming a professional dancer and graduating from USC successfully, my curiosity for archives, the border, and media studies, but also confusion about how to turn my raging academic interests into a tangible career. So like Harry, so many things happen inside my head, but I never thought of them as real. Until I met Dr. Sanchez, my Dumbledore. And very much like Harry's mentor, Dr. Sanchez constantly reminds me that the little and big things happening inside my head are in fact very real. So how in the world did Dr. Sanchez become my Dumbledore? I met Dr. Sanchez when I was accepted into the summer program going to Japan as a sophomore. And I was honestly terrified of developing my very own research project, studying abroad in Japan, and when he offered to be my mentor, I was intimidated and surprised. I mean, why would one of the most influential people in my field and a USC celebrity want to mentor me? Any professor with published books and important positions were very scary to me at this point. But of course I said yes, and I'm thankful every day since. My life was transformed. Today I work for him as a research assistant. He is my mentor for my Mellon Mays project and my honors thesis. He's invited me to take a graduate course, and he's also designed directed reading courses to help me set the foundation needed for my career aspirations. which are to receive a PhD and become a professor or work at a museum. I've also traveled with him a couple more times after Japan, including to Cape Town, South Africa for the Mellon Conference. At the conference, there were many times where other students came up to me and said, "Whoa, your mentor is so cool," or "I'm so jealous of your guys' relationship, you guys seem really close." I mean, secret, he was a DJ at Harvard, so he threw us a dance party in Cape Town. And yes, we are very close. Of course, I'm thankful for his technical training and how to do research and read history and dig through archives and write, all that academic stuff that I actually really love. But what is most important to me is that he believes in all the little and big things happening inside my head. He helped me understand that my education is very much mine, and I can choose to develop it in whatever ways are most beneficial to me. Through individual instruction or conferences or designing my own reading list and so on. But he also helped me believe in myself as a scholar and an academic, which is key to becoming a successful researcher. Most importantly, he's become family. I'll never forget the day he asked me what I really wanted out of life. We were on a plane coming back from Georgia. And I told him that all I really wanted was to be able to enjoy my family. He knows how important family is to me, and through the little moments like attending my dance performances or calling me because he knows I'm having a rough time, sharing stories with me about his undergraduate experiences, or even laughing at me because I'm Harry Potter obsessed, he's become family. So he set the bar high for any future mentors to come, and I know not all, probably not any, will be as close as him and I are, and will probably only focus on academics. But I think every student needs at least one mentor who takes the time to get to know them. One Dumbledore, who makes them understand that they have agency in their education, and helps them understand that the little and big things happening inside their head are real. And that's exactly what Dr. Sanchez did for me.
Helping students believe what is in their head is or can be real. Allowing students to dream big dreams, imagine themselves in their own futures, helping them connect with the resources they need to succeed, and enable them to have the experiences that can propel their learning forward. All of this is what effective mentorship and creative programming for student success must do. It takes time and it takes effort, but it is worth it when one witnesses what can be achieved. I didn't know what to call it for a long time, but maybe being a Dumbledore is pretty close to what it should be. To watch MJ negotiate her life as a dancer, a performer, and as a future professor is for me to watch the future of higher education in front of my eyes. I've been blessed to work with innovative and passionate students like MJ and the rest of the students on this panel, and I truly believe that if we are able to create and sustain programs that enable those students to succeed, that the future of our institutions is secure. Effective mentorship of these students require that we transform our institutions for the better at the very same time that we address their own specific academic and personal needs. Now, MJ is truly my research assistant, helping me complete my next academic book through reading my work, organizing my interviews, and accompanying me as an extra set of eyes to archival collections. Watching me work as a professor allows her to see how scholarship is produced and gives her a window into becoming a professor in her own right. When we recently traveled together to Cape Town, South Africa, MJ created a bilingual blog for her own family and friends to take the trip metaphorically with her and see it through her eyes, through words and pictures. At the very beginning of this blog, she wrote, quote, "As all these blessings come my way, I try to carry my community, my family, and my loved ones with me. It's frustrating sometimes not to be able to directly share these experiences with the people who helped me get there. I want to keep you guys close to me. I want you to be able to follow my journey. I don't think I can change the entire world as an individual, but my role is to take risks and explore spaces people from my community and my specific background may not have had before, to then share my experiences and help the younger generation go above and beyond. In other words, of course I want to inspire younger generations, but not to be like me. I want them to be themselves and better than me." End quote. MJ is already well on her way to becoming both a professor and an extraordinary mentor. To be an effective mentor and create programs that encourage mentorship means that we, as mentors, must be vulnerable to our students. We must allow them to see us as regular people with our own foibles, fears, and insecurities, dreams for the future, and struggles in the present. This requires a commitment to honesty and openness that is often lost in the rush of personal goals and institutional priorities in higher education in the 21st century. But it is possible to cement these commitments by paying attention to those critical moments in life, in the life of a mentorship relationship. And it is in presenting what we will call these moments of mentorship that we wish to conclude our presentation to you today.
My children were age 4 and 1 when I entered USC. So I often brought them with me to school events and meetings because I didn't have a babysitter. The first time I walked into Dr. Sanchez's office with my kids, I walked in apologizing, expecting him to respond the way many other professors did, with a generic, "It's okay," while projecting forced tolerance and disapproval of their presence. Thankfully, Dr. Sanchez did the complete opposite. He not only welcomed us, he took a few minutes to get to know Isaac and Paulina, and then reached for a miniature toy city on his bookshelf, a gift that a colleague had given him, and invited them to play. He was the first professor to make me feel valued for everything I was and represented, instead of guilty for everything I was not. He never showed pity. Instead, he showed enthusiasm for my family's future, as he helped me discover my own unique potential. He made such a lasting impression that today, Paulina and Isaac already consider him their mentor.
About a month ago, I built up the courage and I asked her to dinner. And by her, I mean Estela Ben Simon, a renowned researcher and educator at USC Rossier School of Education. I wasn't quite sure what would happen or if I'd even find the right words to say. Since she is extremely busy, all I was hoping for was feedback for my senior thesis. 3 hours went by, and as she fired me with questions, I began to realize that she wasn't just seeing me as an informant for her research, but genuinely cared for me and about my future. We talked about my family, discussed plans for PhD programs at Columbia, and by the end offered me a job doing research at LA Trade Tech. When we got out of the restaurant, she drove me to where I had parked, a good ways away from campus, and I drove happily that night, thrilled and confident for the future.
I remember, I guess it wasn't on. I guess I could just speak it out. I have 2 now. Lifelong dream. Okay. I remember how numb I was. Part of me likes to associate this to the cold because I don't do well in weather below 70 degrees. When we took the train, it all felt unreal. I had seen the people, I smelled the smells, we walked blocks and saw how different paraphernalia, and somehow it didn't quite seem tangible. This was New York after all. The goal was to find Deb, she happens to have my same name, but Sensei's wife, socks. And he collects these for her everywhere he travels. An important symbol of continuity, quirkiness, and love. At least that's how I see it. We asked around and had seen so many shops, but it wasn't until the last one where we found them, we saw them. They were black, tall tube socks with the metro stops designed on them, like different colors, and I thought that they were perfect for Deb. One of the most important things about that aspect is the fact that he let me pick them. He let me become a part of their tradition. And for the first time, I felt a part of something greater. And that was it.
I didn't get the courage to visit a faculty member in his or her office hours until I was a sophomore in college. Tom Pettigrew had been a Harvard professor for 25 years, a social psychologist who taught race relations and who had replaced his mentor, Gordon Allport, who wrote the classic, The Nature of Prejudice. Pettigrew was nothing like me, I thought, a white Southerner, about my age now, I think, 55. When I walked into his office, I totally froze, and nothing came out of my mouth. But he made me feel at ease by asking, "Where are you from?" When I mumbled Los Angeles, he told me he had just been a court-appointed expert in the Los Angeles school desegregation case, and could I answer some questions for him about the city? Well, 2 hours later, I left his office feeling like I had something to contribute to the knowledge of the world, and with a position as his research assistant.
It was an assignment I did for my first generation college career class, detailing my internal struggles of guilt I have dealt with since leaving home at 14. A random assignment that I thought would be graded and handed back and nothing else. However, a week or so later, I was having lunch with Dr. Sanchez, and he brought up my paper. He was so concerned and wanted to make sure that I was okay. He was adamant about making sure that I understood that the opportunities I had received should not make me feel guilty just because my siblings didn't have the same. At that moment, I understood how truly encompassing his mentorship really was.
My younger sister came to live with me 2 months before graduation, and I was really stressed out on trying to figure out how I was going to help guide her and what my own next steps were going to be. I was worried about money, and I felt it important to budget and save in case I didn't find a job right after graduation. And so buying anything elaborate for graduation was completely out of the question. And Dr. Sanchez and his wife Deb purchased my cap and gown and my degree frame and the invitations to the graduation. They bought it for me as a graduation gift, and it really was a special moment for me that he wanted to commemorate something special, and that he was really making it a point to say that my graduation was a very huge accomplishment, and I've always really appreciated that.
Very few people understand how truly passionate I am about dance and the performing arts, and it's something that I don't think I could ever live without. I mean, my dance season just ended and I'm actually really depressed. So it's something I really want to make a career out of, but this body probably won't last past 30. So I struggle trying to figure out how to incorporate it into my academic aspirations. And I will never forget when we were in South Africa, during one of his presentations, Dr. Sanchez asked all of the Mellon Fellows, how many of us were dancers? I think only 3 of us raised our hands. And then he told us, quote, keep dancing, we need more people like you in academia. You need to make us dance, end quote. May seem insignificant, but I'll never forget those words because I was having a really rough day and I knew he said that just for me. And I thank him every day for the reassurance that no matter what, I can always do what I love. And also, yesterday was my dance banquet closing our season. My mom couldn't go and he attended. So thank you so much.
So the various programs offered by the Dornsife Office for Diversity promotes the building of a network of mentors, beginning with faculty members and students, but expanding to include students learning to mentor other students through example. Each of the students who is presented this morning exemplifies the success which is possible for first-generation college students when they are effectively mentored, but also when they themselves learn how to pass that forward and become effective mentors themselves. At USC Dornsife, we are building that circle of mentorship wider and wider, including faculty, undergraduates, staff, postdoctoral fellows, and PhD students in that circle. Only through proactive programs for first-generation college students and underrepresented minority students that model and embed mentorship into daily academic life will we be able to meet the challenges faced in higher education for the 21st century. Thank you again for your attention and your support this morning. We're now ready to answer. Do we have some questions? Time for questions? Maybe? Okay, take a couple questions that you have for any of us, but thanks to everybody.
We have time for a couple of questions before we take our coffee break and begin the concurrent sessions. Do we have any questions? The mics are in the middle of the room. Do we have any questions for the students? Or for George? Yes, please.
Good morning. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. It's just so inspiring to hear from each of you and the importance of your relationship with faculty and mentors. I do want to ask if you could quickly say a little bit about the formation of the program, how long, how it got to come into being, how it's funded, or maybe tell me where to find it on the website. Thank you.
Yeah, if you look at University of Southern California, Dornsife, it's under diversity. So we're the Office for Diversity. We sponsor a number of programs, and that continues to grow. We were started in 2008 when the then Dean Howard Gilman, who's about to be investitured as the Chancellor of UC Irvine, asked me to join his administration and to start up the office. And he initially wanted me only to do faculty diversity. And I was I now think of it as the smartest move I ever made as an administrator. I said, I won't do it unless you actually let me work with where the diversity is, which is undergraduate students. So I'm willing to do faculty, PhD students, and undergraduates, but that's the only way I step into the job. And that has been my lifeblood ever since.
Thank you. My name is Eddie Delgado. I'm a senior at Tulane University. And thank you all for speaking. My question is basically, at certain universities, diversity initiatives, they have very small groups for very exceptional people. So how do you see the mentorship growing, and how do you see it becoming a priority in some universities where they're trying to find a bottom line? So that's my question.
Question. They'll get there in 1 second. I think the key for me is that this is the 21st century. This is the future of higher education. And we have got to find ways to meet the needs of all the students that come into our institutions. That is essentially the goal. At USC, you know, we are lucky because on the one hand we have lots of resources, but they weren't always used for these students. And the key for me is to how to establish programs using the resources we have that actually reach out and meet these students. And the key, I think, is it has to be proactive and has to reach out to starting with freshmen or transfers, people that just have arrived, and continue that work throughout. You can't wait for those students to come to you. You have to find ways to reach out to them. That means that you have to break down the barriers between academic affairs and student affairs. You have to work together as teams. And you've got to figure out, and you have to build things like peer mentorship into the program so you can reach a larger and larger number of students. I still worry that we're certainly not reaching 4,000 students at USC, which is the whole group of first-generation students. We have to find more ways to incorporate more and more students into the programs we do.
My name is Carlos. I'm also a senior at Tulane. And first of all, thank you to the panelists. As a first-generation college student, first-generation American, that they grew up here in LA, you know, some of the stories that y'all shared really touched me, so I appreciate that. And my question might be a little bit out of the scope a bit, but I'm just wondering how we can reach out to those people that may have had traveled those similar paths that y'all did, but for one reason or another just can't be reached. Because, you know, like, I'm fortunate enough to have a mentor that I love to death that has been there for me since day one, but there are so many people that are as talented or even more talented than I am, but just aren't as fortunate as I am.
Hello. I don't know if this is going to be a holistic response, but I have a lot of friends in that same situation, and I think I've been blessed enough to understand that there is a sense of being privileged in a sense, but I've also understood that we are our own best resource. I have learned insurmountable amount of things from my peers. I would actually associate most of my college experiences, well, the most important ones, you know, besides like the mentorship stuff and like, you know, reaching out into like leadership positions or whatever to be that liaison for my community, the most important asset was my friends and the people that were in these classes and struggling with me and not understanding concepts and coming from similar backgrounds, you know? So I feel like we have to be the force that empowers ourselves to seek those mentorship, like that mentorship or those additional resources to maximize our opportunities at those institutions. Obviously, like you all know, I'm first generation, so me saying that again is kind of whatever. Anyway, but at USC, it was very difficult for me to do it at first. I mean, even just as much as like Sensei or George Sensei was talking about faculty reaching out to students, I think it has to be a two-way trek. Like, I had to reach out too, and like many of us described, like we don't know what to say, we don't know what to do. Like there's so many situations, but at the same time, it's like talking amongst ourselves and telling us, like giving us the impetus to actually go forth and do it. Like, yo, go talk to this professor. I went to go speak to her just in her office hour and she was pretty chill. Like those kind of things like just prompt us to move forward. And I think that's important for us to be our own agents of change as students.
Also to that, oh, can you hear me? Is this working? Okay. Also to that, two things. One, like our scholarship program, the Topping Student Aid Fund, one of the things that they do is each semester they give you kind of like a not a check, but you know, they basically pay for you to take a professor to lunch every semester, and you have to do it. You know, so even if you're like, if you don't do it, you could lose your scholarship. So it's even though like it makes you nervous, it really sort of pushes you to go and ask a professor. Or even if you don't take the professor on your own, they host like a banquet in a room similar like this, and it's like for an hour, and you just ask a professor, like you just go in their office hours with this invitation. Oh, you know, I have to bring a professor, and I wanted to invite you if you wanted to come. So that's like one way to incorporate it into the program. So, you know, it really pushes students if they're nervous because they're not going to want to lose their scholarship. But also, I just read something in an email the other day. I didn't participate in it, but I saw an email from the campus El Centro Chicano, and it had this thing that said powerful pan dulce, like powerful sweet bread. And it's like faculty and students come together in this room and they share like bread and coffee, but it kind of just like puts, it takes that whole scariness of having to walk into office hours or go strictly into the professor's office. I don't know, so I kind of thought that that was smart. So maybe it's just sort of like creative ways, because some people are really shy or they're like nervous or they're really anxious to go talk to a professor. So I feel like, you know, just kind of trying to figure out alternative ways to do it, because expecting a student to just go do it, like, we can't have those expectations of students, especially if they just, you know, you don't know, you're young, you're 19. So those creative things, I think, are really smart in higher education.
Last question, yes.
Hi, my name is Mariam Managby from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. So I'm from that less than 70-degree, atmosphere, right? But I'm really inspired by each of your stories, particularly the students. I am interested in hearing a little bit about how that confidence you built and empowerment that you were able to foster translated into your participation of actualizing your voice in the classroom setting. Because I feel like a lot of students with these types of labels imposed upon them feel inferior to speak up and actually utilize that voice in the classroom. So I would definitely be interested in hearing that from your perspective.
So believe it or not, I was super shy as a freshman. And I am still pretty shy in class, but okay. Talking to professors that made me realize that I could be more than just a student that sits there and listens, helped a lot. And having those professors let me be passionate about whatever it is that I wanted to be passionate about helps. So having them ask me, like, what do you want to research? What are you interested in? Made me realize that what I'm interested in and my experiences are important. And the longer I sat in those classes, the more I got angry that my stories were not being told, or that our narratives were not being told. So if I didn't say it, who else was going to say it? So.
Please join me in thanking the students for sharing their stories, because we know that it's not easy to get up here and do this. So thank you so much for sharing that. This evening from 5 to 7, you're going to hear more about the LEAP Challenge. It will reiterate the messages that you're hearing throughout this conference. Please enjoy your coffee break. The session starts at 11. Thank you so much. Thank you.